The Torah portion today was a little bit exciting for me. Maybe for most of you, it was kind of boring. It's about wood and measurements and building things. But as the rabbi noted, I'm a woodworker. I make furniture. I make everything from tiny ring boxes to jewelry boxes, a lot of frames for my photos. So that was especially exciting for me. And there's a saying about woodworkers, and that is measure twice and cut once. You've probably heard that, some of you. Well, actually, you want to measure twice, then put your wood down on the table saw, then measure a third time before you actually cut, and then pray. Because a woodworker learns by making every mistake in the book and learns how to fix it, and maybe even makes mistakes that no one ever made before. So it's a learning experience. So full disclosure, I'm a U.S. citizen and now a dual citizen happily. And what's happening now in the U.S., I'm very happy to be here in Canada and a Canadian citizen as well. So enough little intro chit-chat. One of the more puzzling notions about the Bible is who actually started the religion. Some say Abraham, monotheism. Others say, well, no, it was actually Moses who really got the ball rolling with the law and the Torah. So I'm going to propose something a little bit different. I'm going to propose that Judaism, is that okay now? Can you hear me? Good. I'm going to propose that Judaism actually started with Adam and Eve in Eden. That's my thesis for today. And so the first part comes right from Genesis, the first part of my argument. And the second part comes from my books, so that's a little bit out there because it is information that is from channeling. So you can consider that just fiction for now and just listen to the content. Okay, so we begin with the biblical evidence. Okay, so I contend that the Jewish faith began with the creation of Adam and Eve in Eden. With Adam and Eve in the garden, talked to God several times, it's noted, and they also got in trouble a bit with God, right? That's in Genesis 3, 9 through 13. But they had a relationship with God, and their descendants of that original pair, Adam and Eve, had relationships with God. So you have Enosh. Enosh is the grandson of Adam and Eve, for which the biblical text said, and I quote, "And to Seth the son was born, and he named him Enosh. And it was then that men began to invoke the Lord all in caps, to invoke the name of the Lord by name." So there you have the beginning of a tradition or lineage of belief in God. Then you have Enoch, seventh from Adam and Eve, of which it is said, "He walked with God, then he was no more, for God took him." Now that's quite an image, right? To walk with God. I mean, imagine if you took that literally, you walk with God. Imagine the questions you could ask. I would ask, who created you? God. Do you have a mother and father? You know, the big questions, right? And God took him. So he went to heaven, we assume. So God took him. Did God send a chariot to get him? I mean, that's also could be a great image in a movie of God coming to get one of his faithful servants. And then you have Noah, okay? 10 generations from Adam. The Bible says, this is the line of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was blameless in his age. Noah walked with God. Again, walking with God, which to me means you're a believer in God and maybe you talk to God and communicate. And for Noah, that's pretty neat, because if God says you're blameless, that's like a get out of jail free card, right? You get a free pass for eternity. So here we have, from the Genesis, we have the first, the third, the seventh, and the 10th generations, starting from Adam and Eve, for which there's a Bible statement of men. Where are the women, as an aside, of men having a close relationship with God, faith in their Creator. Now, this God that Adam and Eve talked to, is this God the same God or a different God than Abraham and Sarah talked to? I can't see any difference. It must be the same God. So the people from the creation of Adam and Eve all the way down to Abraham then talked to the same God, believed in the same God, communicated. So to me, there's good biblical evidence of this lineage of faith and belief starting from Adam and Eve. Okay. Now the second part is from my books, what I call my midrash, and these were in a Q&A, a question and answer format, working with a medium I knew, and I asked various questions that I prepared in advance, and she didn't have the questions, and so I asked her questions, and I got these fascinating answers. I thought they were great, but again, you can consider them for now just fiction. So I started out with asking about Abraham and his early education. I said, so there was a temple in Ur that Abraham went to. What kind of religious practices were there? And the answer was, it was for education, that the elders held meetings, not really classes, meetings for the young men to help them find their way, their place in the tribe. There were prayer times. They would pray together, the prayer space of vision. And some of the men were adept at vision. We know that the prophets had visions, and they went into ecstatic trances. So Abraham had this ability to have visions. So this is fascinating. So I asked, so the school was taught by people like the Hebrews? They didn't worship the local gods? And the answer was no. This was the Hebrew elders, and the elder they were, the more status they had in the teachings. They were maintaining the beliefs, maintaining the history, maintaining the stories. So I asked, so these tribes were teaching about the same beliefs that we know that Abraham later had. They were teaching about one God and the whole belief system. That was my question. And the answer was, they were perpetuating the beliefs of Eden. They were perpetuating the simplicity, the honor, the integrity. It was about how to live, how to serve God, and this is the beginning of what God wanted in service. This was the beginning of the rules. And there was a desperateness in these elders to maintain the family history, the stories, etc., through the family lines. So this text suggests that the beliefs, one God, creator, serving God, originated from the time of Eden. Then I asked about Sarah, and quite interesting, because Sarah also had these memories of Eden awakened. And she knew of Eden, she saw it, she felt it in her memories. She had, in her prayer space, she also had a very deep ability to go into deep prayer. And she and Abraham both were able to have these prayer spaces and to see visions, and they helped each other out and confirmed what each other saw. So Sarah also had memories of Eden that were reawakened. And then lastly, I asked about, so here we have Abraham and Sarah having visions of memories of Eden, the beginning. Then I asked about the lineage of Sarah. So my question was, what is the background and lineage of Abraham's mother? And surprising answer, it was a strong and respected lineage. It feels as if her qualities came from her father's side and the lineage through the father. There is strength in the father's line, reverence, obedience to the Lord in her father's line, service to the Lord in her father's line. There were 3 generations, her father, her grandfather, and her great-grandfather's generation. There was experience of miracles. There was a strictness in her father's line, adherence to the teachings of the previous generation. When we follow the generational line, there is more holiness at the great-grandfather stage. As for 5 generations back from Sarah, there are holy men in this lineage. So what we have here is from Adam and Eve down through to Abraham, we have at least 10 generations from Genesis of belief in God being maintained. And then from my sources, we have from Abraham and Sarah's time, 5 generations going back up with a note of belief in God and holy men and prayer. And Abraham also learning about God and faith from the elders. That's why I say and contend that the faith, maybe not Judaism per se, but the faith in one God started from Adam and Eve and was maintained all the way down through Abraham and beyond. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.